Hey everyone, and welcome. So today we're going to talk about something you think you know all about, icebergs. But trust me, what you see on the surface, that's not even half the story. It's just the tip of the, well, you know. Let's dive in.
Okay, so when you think iceberg, this is pretty much the image that pops into your head, right? This huge, majestic mountain of ice just floating out there. It's the classic postcard shot from the polar seas.
And that leads us to the big question, the whole reason we're here today. Because what's lurking just beneath the waves, that's where things get really interesting.
All right, first up, let's try to wrap our heads around the incredible, almost unbelievable size of these things. So, what even is an iceberg, technically? Well, it's pretty straightforward. It's just a massive piece of freshwater ice that broke away from a glacier or an ice shelf and is now just floating around. A giant, runaway ice cube, basically. And here's the key thing to remember, the big takeaway. The most incredible part of an iceberg is the part you can't see. The huge majority of its bulk is hiding underwater. Let's try and put a number on this. A very large iceberg, and yes, that's an official classification, can be over 76 meters tall above the water. That's taller than a 20-story building just sticking out of the ocean. And it's not just tall, it's wide too. We're talking more than 214 meters across. Think about that. That's longer than 2 football fields put end to end. And again, remember, this is still just the part we can see. Okay, now look at the full picture. The part that's hidden under the water, it is absolutely massive. To give you an idea, it can be as long as 8 blue whales lined up. And the blue whale is the biggest animal on the planet. It just goes to show how much is really going on beneath the surface.
So you're probably wondering, how on earth does something that big actually float? It all comes down to some really simple science. The freshwater ice that makes up the iceberg is less dense than the salty ocean water around it. It's the exact same principle that makes the ice cubes in your drink bob to the top.
Okay, so they're huge. We get that. But where are they born? Where do they come from?
Well, their birth is a pretty dramatic event called calving. You have these ancient glaciers, made of snow packed down over centuries, slowly creeping towards the ocean. And when they get to the edge, boom! Huge chunks just crack, break away, and crash into the sea. That's it. A new iceberg is born.
And this whole calving process really only happens in 2 places on Earth, way up north in the Arctic and way down south in the Antarctic.
Now, you might think the poles are pretty similar, but they're actually quite different. The Arctic is mostly a frozen ocean with land around it. But the Antarctic, that's a whole continent buried under ice. In fact, it's got something like 90% of all the ice in the world.
All right, we've covered their size and where they come from. Now, let's get to the fun part, the wild variety of shapes they can take. It's seriously like a floating art gallery.
So scientists basically split them into 2 big families. First, you've got tabular icebergs. These are the big, flat-topped, table-like ones that break off from huge ice sheets. Then you have non-tabular, which is, well, it's everything else. All the weird, wonderfully sculpted shapes you can imagine.
Let's do a quick run-through of some of these shapes. For example, you get these dome icebergs. They've been worn down by wind and water over time until they're all smooth and rounded. Then, on the other end of the spectrum, you have pinnacle icebergs. These are super dramatic, with 1 or more sharp spires just jutting straight up into the air, carved out by the elements. And then there's the wedge. This one looks almost man-made, right? Kind of like a giant slice of cheese, with one really steep side and the others sloping down gently. And finally, you have the blocky ones. These are probably what you picture when you think of a huge iceberg, just a massive floating cube of ice with steep, flat sides. So we have these gigantic, uniquely shaped ice sculptures just drifting through the ocean. And that brings us to their role in the environment, which is kind of a 2-sided coin. They can be a real danger, but they can also be a safe haven. We've already talked about this, but it's worth saying again. The biggest danger is the part you don't see. That hidden bulk under the water is what makes them such a massive threat to ships. But here's the other side of it. For the animals that live there, these icebergs can be a total lifesaver. Think about penguins. They can hop on top to rest or to get away from predators like orcas that are swimming below. It's their own personal floating island of safety. So when you really think about it, an iceberg isn't just a chunk of ice. It's a whole floating world, with most of its story hidden completely out of sight. It kind of makes you wonder, right?
What other amazing giants are out there, hiding in plain sight?